Okay, we'll start in a minute or two, and if you want to ask us anything or ask Marco anything, you can use this microphone as well as this one.
Okay. Hello.
When they are ready, I will introduce you, and then your
Okay.
game. Okay, welcome. Please welcome Marco on the stage, and you will talk about LibreBoot and free software hardware philosophy.
Okay. Hello. I'm Marco, and this is my talk. So I'm gonna start talking about free hardware and free software philosophy first, and then I'm gonna go into LibreBoot. So what is free software? You probably know what free software is, and there is also free design hardware. Free design hardware, like the free software, is hardware whose design is made publicly available, so that anyone can study it, modify it, distribute it, also for a profit. The term open hardware and open source hardware sometimes are used with the same meaning of free design hardware, but this term usually downplay the aspect of freedom, so we usually don't use those terms. We were designed for the term open soft hardware, which is pretty much referred to free software, but without putting the emphasis of the ethical part, talking about freedom or presenting the issues of freedom as something that is right or wrong. To underline the importance of freedom, it is the right choice, in our opinion, to make a point to referring to freedom whenever it is possible, whenever it's pertinent. Like, since open usually fails to do that, it will be better not to use. It will be better to use the word free. Free software means software that respects user freedom and community. The free software movement started with an email for Richard Stallman in 1983. It roughly means that the user has the freedom to run, copy, distribute, and study, and change and improve the software. And this is applied also to free hardware design. All of this is a matter of liberty and not price. So it doesn't have to be gratis, free software, free hardware design, but it has to be free. To understand the concept, you should think about as free as in freedom of speech, not as in free beer. The picture you see here is actually a free beer project that was started in Denmark, I think in 2004, but I'm not very sure about the date. But you can find more information on Wikipedia. It's interesting. In this concept, what is free is the receipt of a beer, so you can replicate it yourself, but they actually sell the beer for money. With the for freedom, the user control the program of the hardware and what it does for them. When a user don't control the program, we call it non-free or proprietary. The non-free program control the user, and developer control the program. This makes the program an instrument of unjust power, because the developer have too much power over the user. When we talk about free hardware design and free software, we mean by software what is the operational part of a device that can be copied and changed. Like the hardware is the operational part that cannot be changed. This is why we make this distinction based on practical consequences. The RepRap project is a project I really like for the philosophy. Is where the 3D printer comes from. It was started around 2005 in England by Adrian Boyer, who was a professor at the University of Bath, with Vic Oliver, that is from New Zealand. And their goal was to make a self-replicating machine, a low-cost 3D printer. This project, you can find it at reprap.org. It does use free licenses, and it's basically also a free hardware design. This is the first 3D printer that was ever made. We have on the right, no, on the left we have Adrian Boyer, and on the right we have Vic Oliver. This is the Darwin, and this was the first duplicated printer. The philosophy page of the RepRap talks about what the founder of this project envisioned with this project. I'm not going to talk about all of the aspects of this page because it's going to take forever. I'm just going to make a little bit summarize, but you can find it on the official wiki if you like to read it. It also talks about the economy of this. Like in the real world, we have two key biological phenomena, like self-replication and self-assembly. With a RepRap, like self-replication can be achieved, but self-assembly is more difficult. So we do have in nature, like also viruses, they use like complex replicator like our body to do the assemble for them, so that they can actually evolve and spread. This is an example of self-replication assemble of the 50s. So with the RepRap project, it works in symbiosis with the man. Just like the flowers works in symbiosis with the bees, because the bees get the nectar to actually, with the nectar they are paid to bring the pollen around so that the flower can keep living. The RepRap machines works pretty much the same way, because also as a human we breed some certain species, like the chicken. Just because they work in symbiosis with us, they give us eggs in exchange for us taking care of them. And here is like our most powerful technology, that is genetic engineering. And with RepRap, we have a machine that self-replicated almost all of this part, like the plastic part. You can print them yourself, and it does exist in symbiotical with people, because a RepRap machine gives us tools that, in exchange for us, in exchange we only have to replicate that for a friend or for a neighbor. So, and it does evolve by breeding, because the free design hardware means that we can share the blueprint and we can actually adapt them and evolve them. This is what RepRap means: replicating rapid prototyping. Here we have a picture of the Ormerod, that is the Lattice 3D printer that Adrian Boyer designed. And it does make useful things, like for example combs. Like with a RepRap machine, usually takes about 1 day to replicate one, depending on the design. And if we make one printer and one comb a day, it's going to be exponential. If we keep duplicating the 3D printer, and this will actually help to have less waste, because will be no need for transport a lot of items. The RepRap machines also, the philosophy was that to help like the less advanced part of the world, to give them tools in order for the people to get possession of the machinery. The wealth for RepRap is pretty much, the motto is wealth without money, because with a real RepRap, the replicative self, it's very hard nowadays to make a profit selling RepRap. But it is possible to save money printing objects that we need for our daily use, like a glass or a spoon. For this reason, pretty much everyone would actually want to have a universal construction, but there is not really a company that really sells wrap-wraps. And the widespread adoption of wrap-wrap will help reduce the cost of transportation of a lot of goods. And if we decide to use PLA, that is bioplastic, we can also get in symbiosis with agriculture, because PLA is made from corn and lactose, so will actually, and it's totally safe. ABS is the plastic that is used the most, that is the same one is used for the brick of Legos, but that comes from the petroleum and the fumes are toxic, so we don't usually suggest people to use that. Also, if you have some advantage, like with acetone, you can make it very smooth. With PLA, you need to use chloroformium, that is more hard to handle for me to have a smooth surface. You usually take a metal container and then put a little bit of acetone or chloroformine inside, and the vapors was gonna smooth the skin of the object. You're gonna lose a little bit of thickness, so you need to, if you're doing something that needs very precise, you call them, it needs, yeah, something that needs to be very precise, you need to take account of for this. Another things that was theorized in the wrap philosophy page was the Open Pharma project, because the patent drug cost thousands of euro per patient per year, but with an advanced robot, it will be possible with an evolved wrap machine to make such a robot to actually produce drugs. This would actually liberalize the chemical treatment of a disease. It will always have to be from free hardware design distributed on the web. Like the Open Pharma project will be also kind of, we can say not dangerous, but risky, because due to the nature of a human being and the people that like to experiment, we will probably, yeah, evolve experimenting some drugs that are not safe, but that is normal. This will be actually have the ability to make a drug development, a synthesis, a collaborative exercise, like the free software and free hardware design is, and also cut the large pharmaceutical company out of the project altogether. It will liberalize the chemical treatment of disease, because we always need to think that even if we are lucky here to get a lot of drugs to a fair price, it's not like this all around the world. So now I start talking about LibreBoot. LibreBoot, what is LibreBoot? LibreBoot is a BIOS that is totally free software, 100%, so it doesn't have any binary blobs. I learned how to flash LibreBoot from Technoetico. Technoetico is a company based in Romania, but they also have team components all around the world, and it focuses 100% only on hardware that works with free software, so, and that is Respect Your Freedom certified. Respect Your Freedom is a certification that the Free Software Foundation gives, and you can be just to assure people that everything that the vendor sells is actually going to respect their freedom. To me, this is very important, so that's why I joined Technoethical when they asked that, and I kind of follow the Italian part. So the BIOS initializes the hardware and boots your operating system. Many people use non-free proprietary boot firmware, even if what we run on top of it is actually GNU Linux. The non-free BIOS UEFI firmware often contain backdoors, can be slow, and also could have bugs. And you are left helpless at the mercy of a developer to have bug fixing. By contrast, LibreBoot is fully free, and everybody can contribute or inspect its code. LibreBoot is not a fork of CoreBoot, but I'm going to talk about this later. LibreBoot is much faster, it is more secure and reliable than most non-free firmware, and provide also advanced and useful feature, like you can encrypt the boot partition, you can have GPG signature checking before booting your kernel, and if somebody wanna see how fast it loads, I have a computer with LibreBoot, and after we can start the laptop so you can see with your eyes. So LibreBoot comes from CoreBoot and is a developed CoreBoot. LibreBoot team upstream custom patches to projects like CoreBoot, DepthCharge, Grab, and FlashROM, anytime where they find that possible. And the LibreBoot team also provide an automated build and installation system with non-technical documentation. This is because one of the goals is to get as much people as possible to use LibreBoot in as easy as it can get. And in my opinion, it is pretty easy to flash LibreBoot. You just need some special hardware, but it's not. But hardware that you can also use for something else. I'm going to show some of the hardware later. So it's really something that everybody can do. Yeah, so this is pretty much the same. I just said this. LibreBoot is a coreable distribution with non-free software removed, intended to be a free BIOS replacement for your computer. I think I made a problem. Okay. So there are three main goals in the LibreBoot project. One is to recommend and distribute only free software. So while CoreBoot distributes certain pieces of non-free software that is needed for some system, LibreBoot does not. So like the CPU microcode updates, memory initialization blobs, and so on. These are all things that you won't find in LibreBoot. And this is what the first main goal of LibreBoot is, the blob and CoreBoot. The other goal is to support as much as hardware as possible. LibreBoot does support less hardware than CoreBoot, because most systems that CoreBoot supports still require non-free software to work properly. LibreBoot it is an attempt to support as much hardware as possible without any proprietary software. The last goal is to make it as easy as possible to use, and while CoreBoot is difficult to install, like LibreBoot is not. In my experience, I think it's probably impossible to brick the laptop while installing LibreBoot, or at least I never met or read about somebody that bricked their computer with LibreBoot, because there is always another way of debricking it, if in case. So this is an advantage. All the LibreBoot installation is automated as much as feasibly possible, and the project produces a lot of documentation aimed at non-technical users like myself. And there is also very good support with the mailing list and IRC. The developer of LibreBoot is Leah Rowe. She is from England. LibreBoot has come with a payload, flash ROMs, and all the needed part. Everything is 100% integrated. This is just to take out of the way the most complicated steps that are otherwise required, and all of this is done in advance for the end user. You can download the ROM images for you, install them and install them without having to build anything from source. The build system is 100% automated, but if you really want to do, you can actually build from the source of LibreBoot. So LibreBoot is not a coreboot fork. How LibreBoot work is different from how coreboot work. Coreboot usually works with a roll-in version. In LibreBoot, we select, not me because I'm not part of it, they select a coreboot version that it works, develops it, and then becomes LibreBoot. Like if you want to add a new board or new feature to LibreBoot, you should always work on coreboot, and LibreBoot will receive your code at a later date when it updates itself. The developed coreboot using LibreBoot is referred to as coreboot libre. And coreboot usually use the rolling release model, which means that it's not guaranteed to be stable or to even work at all on a given day. Coreboot does have a strict code review process, but being such a large project with many contributors, regressions are always possible. LibreBoot instead freezes on a particular revision of coreboot, making sure that everything works properly, and the team makes fixes on top of that, and then update to a latest version of coreboot. By doing this, there is a stronger guarantee that the firmware will be reliable and that the firmware will not break your system. So to flash LibreBoot, you need some hardware in order to connect to the chip. You usually use a Pharma 16-pin Pharma clip. This is the Beaglebone Black. Is one of the ways to flash LibreBoot. You will need an operating system for the Beaglebone Black to do that, and I can provide it for you. And another tool is the Bus Pirate, or you can also use the PKit to connect to the chip. Now I'm gonna introduce like one of the operating systems that Technoethical ships their laptop with. You probably are familiar with Ubuntu. This is the logo of Triskel. Triskel is pretty much Ubuntu developed, so it's just free software. There are other free operating systems like Parabola. You can find the list on GNU.org. This is because, like with a free operating system, you can do pretty much everything that you can do with an operating system that have binary blobs on top of it. But it does have differences. Like switching to 100% free software, you need to actually be motivated and also be ready not to use some components. Like for example, I only use free software also on my smartphone, so for me everything is fine. But I doubt you might connect a fully proprietary phone to a Libre system. So Triskel GNU Linux is aimed to home user, small enterprises, and educational centers. And Triskel is 100% free. When we talk about free, we always refer to freedom. It have everything that Ubuntu has, minus the binary blobs. So yeah, that's it. There's going to be a workshop where I can help you install Flash LibreBoot, or I can help you with Replicant. I think is on the last day of Bornhack. So if anybody is interested of seeing LibreBoot or Replicant or talk about free software, I'm gonna be there for 3 hours. So this is it, and it's short, but it's um,
Hi there. Thank you very much for your talk.
you're welcome.
So, um, sorry, I need a minute to form the question. So you had about 4 slides talking about how, like, the difference between coreboot and LibreBoot, and you had in the project goals of LibreBoot how documentation is a big thing, the having only support for hardware that doesn't require any blobs is a big thing, and the third one I don't remember anymore. But the question is to you as involved in techno-ethical. Do you feel that there is like a significant value in creating a divide between LibreBoot and coreboot in terms of developer resources? I mean, obviously the coreboot project would, I imagine, also like to have good user documentation, for example, and the deblobbed part, or the deblobbing. I mean, I can see how like I would expect the coreboot project to be happy to also have like optimize for this use case. So what's your perspective from the techno ethical point of view, and or like experiences that techno ethical have made with this divide, as I see it, of development resources and of efforts?
Like, first of all, I'm in techno-ethical not from a long time. I'm more of a volunteer because I don't make any money with techno-ethical. Yeah. Techno-ethical only use free software. So for us, LibreBoot is very important because some people prefer to have the knowledge that there is nothing on their system that might spy on them. It is true that the coreboot have more developers. Coreboot does help a lot of people to get away from standard BIOS, which is a very good thing. What we would like us as free software and free design hardware community, we have more platforms that are LibreBoot supported, and we as Technoetica, we are working for this very hard, but it's not that easy. I cannot tell you like the new laptop that is gonna come up, but we are constantly increasing this, and I don't know if this answer your question or. Yeah.
But I mean, I do want to encourage making more free design hardware. I think that's a fantastic endeavor, and so do I. And it's definitely something to support. But yeah, no, it didn't quite answer my question about the value of a distinct brand. Like it seems to me that LibreBoot is first and foremost a brand.
Yeah, that's Leah Rover, the developer that actually decided to deblob coreboot. She decided to do so.
Yes.
Like it would be very nice to have Libre coreboot, like I will totally agree with that. But at this moment, we just have LibreBoot, which is 100% free.
So I take a little bit of issue with the. So you said one motivation for technoethical is that it's important to use free software, and of course it is to me as well.
Yeah, for us, it's pretty much mandatory to use only free software. It's that we don't
Perfect.
have an option like we don't use anything that is not free.
Yeah, perfect.
Except GPS when we have a car. But yeah.
So my point is, by saying so as you did, some people prefer to be 100% sure that there is nothing on their system spying on them. When LibreBoot says this is what we promise, LibreBoot also implicitly says, well, with coreboot you might get spied upon.
But it's just like the same with Triskel and Ubuntu. With Ubuntu, there are binary blobs, and you don't know what is inside the binary blobs.
Well, that depends on how I install my Ubuntu system, doesn't it? Like, it's not always the case that Ubuntu ships spyware to me.
No, it's not spyware, but they might some
Or
binary blob. Do you have any binary blobs on your system?
Not necessarily. I can, of course, run a Ubuntu system without any binary blobs.
Yeah, of course. Also Debian, you can do that.
Right? And
Yeah.
and just the same way, it's also possible to run a coreboot system without any binary blobs. So
yeah, but that usually becomes more, you need to have more skill to do that.
This is true, and I think there is a lot of value in the documentation and in the tooling and in the automation and in the testing that goes on in LibreBoot. I just wish it would be part of coreboot instead of being a separate project.
Yeah, I understand your point. It's just that I'm not part of of a LibreBoot team. Yeah.
This I know. That's why I was asking about.
But
like
I agree with you. It would be very nice. But then it also depends on the developer if they get along. Because some have very strong character.
This is true.
Yeah, like I don't know if you know Leah.
Yeah.
Also have his own point of view.
Yes.
Yeah. I've heard also people that was actually thinking to make another version of FreeBIOS, but I don't know how it is going. Like the more we fragmentate and the more free project we do, I think the worse it is, because it would be better to have just one main project. This is something I really would like to.
So yeah, I thank you for saying that. I feel the same way very much. So did you? Yeah. No, I guess that answers my question. I was trying to ask if techno-ethical has notices a difference between coreboot and LibreBoot.
I'm not the right techno-ethical guy to ask this because there are more, but I can talk with them later. And I'm gonna come back to you about this. And also, if you want, after we can connect with my laptop to the chat, and we can talk with them. Really, because they are open to,
All right, let's do it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I saw we have a question over here, and please.
Hi. You very briefly showed 3 different boards. I presume that's for programming onboard chips. Whether you did that very quickly, and I don't understand. And you advertised somehow for this particular board. What are the differences and advantages?
Usually the difference is I like the Beaglebone because it's a little bit faster, and then I can use it also for other projects. So I don't use it only for programming. It depends on the cost of the board. I prefer the Beaglebone just because I use it with a Freedom Bone. So I just swap the SD, and that's it. but you can get the cheapest. There are also cheaper version to flash, so it's not really important what you use. What? The Beaglebone? I don't remember, about 40 euro, something like that. But it's a very nice micro computer. And do you know FreedomBone? FreedomBone is, is a set of software you can install on a Beaglebone. You can have also you can have a free instant instance of Media Goblin, and just go to FreedomBone, start paging it, and it's really, really nice. Yeah. I didn't talk about that because it's not FS approved, so it's not considered 100% free software because it's based on Debian, but yeah. So.
Are there more questions? Yes.
Just a comment on the Beaglebone. So the Beaglebone is nice for one other reason when working with LibreBoot and or coreboot. You can use it to get debug output from LibreBoot and or coreboot over USB, and it's not so easy to get another piece of hardware that does that. So it's quite a convenient. It's convenient for two reasons in this field.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay, thank you. Let's give Marco a big hand.
Thank you.